Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about the new energy portal, and I will show you a little bit of the statistics card that's now available. So let's get started. In case you haven't heard about it, Home Assistant has created an energy portal or an energy management display in Home Assistant, which allows you to go through and monitor your energy usage as well as how much energy you're producing if you have something like solar panels. Now, this is a very, very beginning part of this, and I will show you what I have set up. Now, I don't have any solar panels, so what I'm able to do is just display my energy usage and get a rough idea of the cost of how much I'm spending on energy. Now, if you're using the energy or using version 2021.8 or later, you should have this energy option on the sidebar. If this doesn't show up, you're either not using the default config in your Home Assistant configuration, or you haven't. If you aren't using that, you have to specify energy in your Home Assistant configuration for this to show up. So I'm using default config, and so I have this option available to me. Now, I've already gone through and I've done some setup of this. If you haven't set this up before, when you click energy, you're going to be presented with some options. However, since I've already set it up, and this is not a detailed setting or setup video, but I will show you how you can go and make edits to this. So clicking on configuration over here on the sidebar and scrolling down to energy allows you to change any of the stuff you've already set up. And this is pretty much the same as the setup screens are going to be. You have your electricity grid, you have your solar panels, and then you have individual devices. And you can specify any of those items on here. I'm using a home energy meter, and it's a clamp style meter where you clamp it on the mains coming into your house. Now, there's a lot of discussion about different meters, different ways to read things. There are a couple of different options that you can use depending on your location in the world. Some of them allow you to read the flashing of the LED. Some have native plugs that you can plug in that your provider lets you do. Some can even use Zigbee using a special portal or special hub to be able to read this. There are, what I'm finding, a lot of different ways that people get power to their house or where they live. A lot of different meters, a lot of different stuff out there. So no one size is going to fit all. What I recommend you do is, if you're having issues, make sure you read the forums, because there's a lot of discussion on a lot of the more common issues and more common ways to do things. Now, the way you set this up is you would add consumption, and this consumption allows you to pick whatever device is in this case, my main energy sensor for the house. And again, it's the Home Energy Meter G2. Now, important distinction here. You have to select number one, something with kilowatt hours. You don't want something with watts. Watts measures your current usage. Kilowatt hours measures your usage over time. We don't want current usage. What we want is usage over time. So you need to choose a sensor or an entity that has kilowatt hours. And you can actually see that specified right here. In addition, you don't want to specify something that resets on a daily basis. You want something that runs a continuous total. So in my case, the device that I'm using here, this Home Energy Meter G2, actually runs on a kilowatt hour measurement basis, and it continues to accumulate the values. It doesn't reset on a daily basis, because if you reset it on a daily basis, you're going to lose some of your the way this system works, the way it does the max, the mean, the min, the calculations. So make sure you're doing that. Now, there's also the option to be able to set a pricing point. And I know that some of you watching my videos have looked or have asked me how you can set this based on tariffs. Electricity costs more in certain parts of the day than it does in others. And so you can go through and use an entity to track the total costs, or an entity with current price. Now, I'm using a static price right now. It's the average of what I've seen on my last three utility bills. It's not 100% accurate, but it gives me a good ballpark right now. Later on, I'm going to add some tariffs And there's a lot of discussion again on the forums about how you do the tariffs. Some people have tariffs based on time of day. Others have tariffs based on usage, but you would basically set up some templates. You would set up using utility meter, and utility meter is this option here that allows you to set up sources and then set up the tariffs and stuff like that. So you can go through and read how this works. Look at the utility meter option in Home Assistant if you want to use tariffs, because I've played with this for a little bit, and I have some mixed thoughts about the first version of this. This is what it looks like for me. I don't have any solar panels. And so what I'm getting is basically consumption on an hourly basis. Now, another thing to think about or consider is when you set this up initially, it's going to take up to 2 hours for your data to start showing. That's because it only calculates it once per hour. So you need to make sure that once you set it up and you see nothing here, that you wait. Give it some time. Additionally, one of the things I notice is this defaults to euros. So what you have to do in your configuration is there's 2 ways to do that. You can go to change that. You can go back to configuration, go to general, and you can set your currency to this. Now I'm editing this within my YAML, my configuration.yaml file. So in that case, I have to modify that in my YAML file, and then I change it to US dollars, so I get US dollars. So I've seen a lot of discussion on that as well. So if you want to read this in the correct denomination, make sure you change it to your local denomination. Okay, so what I have here is you'll see the energy distribution on the right. And this isn't showing anything here other than what's going from the grid into the house. So I'm consuming everything because I don't have any power generation of my own. It shows me the sources, or source in this case, a single source, the amount of energy used, and then the amount of grid total. So if I were consuming this energy through a generator or something else that could be measured here, it could also show the consumption here as well. In addition to that, I'm also monitoring individual devices. I have these three devices are Tasmota devices. So I have the fridge plug, the freezer or the study plug, and I also have the freezer plug. So I have these 3 plugs that are being measured, and all of these showed up natively out of the box. I didn't have to do anything with either this meter that I'm using for this or these plugs, because they all showed up as kilowatt hour based on total usage. There's a total usage kilowatt hour. And if we look at developer tools, we can see exactly what I'm talking about here. So we look at the study plug. I have a study plug current, which is in amps. I have a study plug or an energy power, which is in watts. And then I have an energy today, which is in kilowatts. And I have a total, which is also in kilowatts. So this is the one that I'm using, the total. You don't want to use the one for today, like I mentioned. You want to use a total. And that's how I get that into those plugs, or I get it to display in the energy portal. Not every device out of the box is going to be able to do this. If it doesn't show up, there's a number of different ways to deal with that. You can use the Ryman or the integration platform to change the values to energy values, again, above the scope of this video. But you can do that to make them show here. You can, if they don't show up and they're a vendor supplied device, you're going to have to talk to the integrator or integration add-on person, developer, to make sure that they're sending data over properly so that you can see it in this energy portal. I know there's continuous work that's going to be used to develop this and make it better. But on first glance, it's not super useful to me other than maybe seeing my usage over time and getting a cost. Now I can do this in a number of different ways as well, using other things like Grafana or the statistics cards. So this is a basic display of what I see. Again, I've got 3 plugs, I've got my total usage, but because I'm not doing solar or anything like that, it's not really helpful to tell me how much I'm generating versus how much I'm consuming. You know, if you have solar panels, this is pretty awesome. For me, it's a nice development. It's very useful for a lot of people. I'm not so sure about myself. And what I'll show you next are the statistics cards. And those statistics cards allow me to better visualize some of this stuff that I'm talking about. Before I get into showing you the statistics cards, let me just go through here real quick and show you how I add it in my individual devices. And you can do this either at the beginning, like I talked about when you first open up the energy portal, or you can come back here and add the individual devices this way. It's just as simple as clicking on add a device here and picking it from the drop-down list. Any one of these devices I can use, and I've already pulled a bunch of them in here, you can see. But you just pick one and you click on it and it goes into your list there. And one of the things, I don't know if this is a problem with the browser. I'm on a Chrome browser and I can't click this stuff. But if I go into Firefox, it works fine for me. I think that's probably just a browser problem. Okay, so let's go over to what I was talking about earlier, the statistics cards. Now, this statistics graph card, it allows you to display a graph of statistics data for each of the entities listed. And those statistics are gathered every hour for sensors that support it. So it's the same kind of thing that we see with the energy card. You're only going to update once an hour, and it's a lagging update. So you may be an hour or two behind on the data you're displaying. So it's going to keep the minimum, maximum, and mean of a sensor value for the specific hour, or the sum of the metered entity. Not all sensors are available for the statistics card at this moment. They're working on adding more of this to the availability, but not everything is available, which I found out. If it doesn't work, you can click this link here and it'll talk about what you need to do. So if you don't see in the dropdown, it's caused by a bug in the integration that provides the entity. Integrations need to configure their entities correctly so Home Assistant knows that we need to track statistics for it. So you have to open an issue with the author of the integration and link them to this this statistics page that talks about long-term statistics. And basically what you have to do is have a state class and a measurement in order for long-term statistics to be able to be collected by Home Assistant. So they'll have to go in there and fix that stuff. So I'm going to show you some of the statistics cards that I have built out already. And this is the same kind of statistics card that is used on the energy portal. So for me, I've got a playground here for data. And what I'm graphing here are a number of different values. Now, these things on the right are not, this one is, but these two right here are not statistics cards. These are Apex graph cards. And I left them on here as an example to show a different type of graph card. When we're talking about visualization of data in Home Assistant, you have a lot of different options. And I'll even go so far as to show you another way I show it, and you've seen a lot of this if you've paid attention to my videos. You've seen that I do a lot of stuff in Grafana. And this is my power graph in Grafana. One of the things I've found out about or noticed with the energy portal so far is it's not very configurable. In fact, it's not configurable at all. You're going to get what you get, and you're not going to be able to build it the way you want to necessarily. I'm assuming that's something that will come in the future. Hopefully give you a little more power to control the way you want it to look. And I know there's already been some work done by the original author on refactoring some of the cards and the way some of the stuff is displayed, so it's more useful and it's better overall. But you can see the difference here. Let's go back, and I'll pull back up the energy portal. And we'll see that I have this graph, this little energy distribution thing, and a graph of individual devices. If I go over to my Home Assistant Grafana, you can see also that I have these individual devices. Now I could layer these on. I could, in addition to getting the actual time-based values here, you can also see that I'm getting energy used yesterday and energy used today. So I also have a freezer plug. It shows me this. These are these Tasmatized devices, right? And I have the freezer plug energy doing the same stuff. So I'm able to display this, and I could overlay all this onto a single graph and get something like the energy meter like this. I could do the same thing for energy usage. And I see here that I have house power. Now this is not kilowatts. This is usage on an ongoing real-time basis. I can certainly put the house kilowatt hours on here and get myself an overall total for the day, and then also be able to select it historically. One of the other things that I have issue with on this, and this is not to bash the energy portal. This energy portal is going to be extremely useful, and especially for those that have alternative methods of power generation, such as solar panels, you're going to be able to get that. easily, and it's meant to be done as something that can be done super easy. So let's not this is not a session to say this is terrible or anything. This is just a session to compare where the energy portal is versus what I'm doing today. One of the things I noticed with the energy portal here as well is that I go through, and when I do this, now I can't see these individual devices. Again, I don't know if that's a browser issue, and I guess we can kind of compare that. Let me bring up Firefox here. Now this is Firefox, and this is today's data. So let me refresh. Here's the 3 energy plugs here. If I go back a day, the same issue happens. Now, it does update here in a moment. You'll see it actually does. Let me see if this updates. So that does work. So it's updating okay when I go back a day or two. And I click back to today. It takes a second. For whatever reason, I guess it's loading the values. For whatever reason on Chrome, and again, this could be a browser issue, I don't see that. It doesn't seem to update. Let me let it wait a second here and see if it does the same thing. It may just be a function of Chrome itself, or it doesn't update that. But what I try to do is if I go back a day and I refresh this now, it doesn't keep that persistent. So I don't know that I'm on it takes me back to the current day. So if I want to view previous days usage down here in the individual devices, I actually have to go to Firefox to make that happen. All right, that being said, let's look at some of these things here. On these graphs, we now can see that I have the house power. So it's got minimum, mean, and maximum. I've got washing machine power, minimum, mean, and maximum. Now, the difference between these graphs and something like this is actually the time-based value. So this is a kilowatt hour. So this is doing what the energy portal does. You'll also notice that I have what's considered the layout here. It's considered to be sidebar layout. Remember, we had masonry, which is your default layout. You have panel, which is a single card across the entire width of the dashboard. And now we have this new one called sidebar, which they've added recently. And sidebar allows you to do basically what the energy panel does. It gives you the ability to put a sidebar over here with values, so smaller graphs or smaller items. And then if you need full width graphs or partially almost full width graphs, 3/4 width, then you can put those on the left-hand side. So you can look at your graphs really nicely here. But if we edit this card, we have for our entities here, we have 2 different cards. We have the home energy kilowatt or watts. And on card 2, we have watts here. Now these are showing more of the real-time status as mean max. So this is actually not the kilowatt hours that I just mentioned. This is showing it in watts, which is not what energy meter shows. So you can actually get this mean, minimum, maximum over time. So with this card, you don't necessarily need minimum or maximum. You just want the mean value over time. So I can take those off. And now what I'm looking at is just the mean value, an average of sorts of the battery voltages or the temperatures for these values. Now, if you're tracking something like outdoor temperature that's wildly fluctuating, especially seasonality, you might want to have mean and max. Battery or indoor temperatures don't change that much. And then I do the same thing with something like my Synology CPU. Now, the difference between the energy portal and these statistics cards, the way I'm using them today, is that you can put a lot of different values in here. For example, my Synology CPU, which I just mentioned. And then I'm also looking at power consumption of light bulbs. And then over here, again, I'm using Apex charts, which are a totally different chart, not related to the statistics card. But the whole point of this discussion today is not to get into detail on how to build this stuff. And by the way, if you want me to show you how I built these, let me know and I'll show you how to build them. It's very simple to do that. I will just do a quick example, but not go through a whole setup here. If I want to edit the dashboard, I'm going to add a card. I'm going to add what's called a statistics card or statistics graph. And I'm going to add a statistic. And this shows me all the things that I can add that are available as statistics or showing up as statistics in Home Assistant. If it's not on this list, it doesn't have a statistic value that shows up. So I'll just pick up my attic air temperature value. And again, I'm having this issue with Chrome. So let me go into Firefox and do it here. So back over to my Data tab, edit the dashboard. And I'm going to add a new card. Again, statistics, graph. And I will be able to choose the entities. So I'll do attic air temperature. See how I can click that here, and for whatever reason in Chrome I can't. If you want to add another temperature sensor or something else that's related to this, garage air temperature, you can have another statistic. You can give the panel title an optional tab. You can give an optional title to the panel. You can also choose whether this is a bar chart or a line chart. And again, for these temperatures, you can do mean temperatures, minimum or maximum. And if we do a bar chart, you can kind of see the bar chart. Now what I can do here, because that bar chart is updating, or those values are updating so frequently, I may only want 5 days of data here, and see how it shows the bar chart. For a line chart, I might want more data to give me a better view of historical values. And then I can save this, and you'll see now at the bottom of this graph or list of graphs, you'll have these temperatures. So there you have it. You have all of these graphs available to look at. And this is a way that you can do stuff without having to use Grafana. I know some of you have asked me how to be able to view graphs and data within Home Assistant without having to use Grafana, or asked me to take Grafana graphs and make them show up in Home Assistant. I think this is a more elegant option, is to have these graphs available here for statistics-based things that are available for now. And then you can just use this to view what you want to view. So this is an overview on how I have set up some of the visualizations that I use in Home Assistant to understand what's going on within my home and being able to represent the data that Home Assistant is providing. There are a bunch of different ways to do this. You've got, again, Grafana, you've got now the statistics graph, you've got the energy portal, all kinds of stuff. I think everyone will have their favorite. Today, again, I'm just trying to give you an overview of how I'm showing things. Since this video is just basically an overview, I didn't really get into a lot of the configuration. I know some of you watch my videos for the detail on how to do things. So if you have a specific question about any of the graphing or the energy portal, and remember, I don't have solar panels, so I can't help with that necessarily, but I can maybe point you in the right direction. Just let me know. I'm happy to make videos on how I configured specific elements here. So let me know what specifically you would like me to show you, and I will do that for you. I think what I want to concentrate on next is making the tariffs work. And so I'll do a video on tariffs after this. But again, if you have any questions or feedback, let me know down in the comments down below. If you're not a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.